Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Elyria City Council for Tuesday, January 17th, 2023's full council meeting. At this time, we'll take a moment of reflective silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Corbin, would you please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. If everyone in the audience can either please turn your phones down to mute or off, it would be greatly appreciated. Ms. Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sierra.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
All present.
Public hearings.
There are none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Serra,
Second.
second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, council members and Elyria residents. A couple updates. First, I want to thank the community for their turnout yesterday at the MLK celebration and for their participation in the breakout sessions. We kicked off the comprehensive land use planning effort and encourage all our residents to go on ourelyria.com and fill out that survey. The next public meeting will be held here in council chambers on February 6th at 6 p.m., where they'll be talking again about what is the comprehensive land use plan and walking people through the survey. But again, just want to thank folks and for the MLK and here for any questions you may have.
Any questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Safety Service Director, Mr. Lundy.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. You know, we've all heard the phrase, you can't fool Mother Nature, right? But instead, Mother Nature decided to fool us last Friday when the winter weather advisory went up. Original predictions of 3 to 8 inches, later is reduced to amounts of 2 to 4 inches, never materialized. We checked with a few communities who, just like us, had staged their crews for an arrival time around 4 in the morning. The snow didn't arrive. Then we thought there might be a delayed snow start around 10 a.m., and that too didn't arrive. What little snow we did get and the cold temperatures obviously did create a possible scenario for slick conditions, but our crews did a very good job of salting our main streets. That made travel much better around town. I checked out a few of the main streets myself, and they had been salted and were very drivable. Shout out to our streets department and our whole snow response team. You know, as I think many of us have said before, the weather forecasters are the only ones that still get paid. Even when they miss the forecast, right, they still got the job, they still get paid. Not a bad gig, I guess. But I think we can all be thankful that, I think anytime we miss bad weather, we're thankful we're not going to complain about it. Just to update you on the salt strategy, 9,000 tons I know were purchased for the city through the ODOT purchasing program. A minimum purchase under that program is at least 8,000 tons. We started the season with around 4,000 tons. In December, we had purchased 800 tons and just arrived the other day, another 1,100 tons that we have. So we're in good shape on salt. Hope we don't have to use much of it. But according to the contract, we're obligated for at least the 8,000 tons, but you know, closer to 9,000 tons overall. That completes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Lundy? Yep. Finance Director Plusky.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would respectfully ask that you refer to the Finance Committee of Council the matter of paying an unencumbered bill from 2022.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, very good, thank you. Law Director Deary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just note that based upon the actions of the Rules Committee, which met earlier this evening, that there will be a matter that has been laid on the table. I would ask that that would be addressed during miscellaneous and unfinished business that pertains to a charter amendment of Article 3, Section 3.12. I have no further report, but I am available for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. In light of the recent bill signed by the Ohio governor, are there any plans by the Law Department to look into expunging certain marijuana records for possession of marijuana in the city of Elyria?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Traditionally, expungements are initiated by the defendant, and so at this time, I and my employees and colleagues in the prosecutor's office would not be initiating anything, but that does not mean that in the future that we would not be taking a look at anything that we would receive. I would anticipate that those would come through the Elyria Municipal Court, much like any other expungement requests.
Any other questions for the Law Director? Okay. Elyria Police Department, Chief Pelko. Questions for the Chief? Elyria Fire Department, Chief Pernesti. Mr. Lippian.
Through you, Mr. President, thank you. Fire Chief Pernesti, do you want to speak a little bit about the events that took place a week ago and regarding safety and communication with the fire department?
So if you're mentioning the commissioners meeting, first I want to thank the mayor for coming. I appreciate, and on behalf of the fire department and my men, thanks for taking a stand with us on this safety issue. So it's much appreciated. Really, as you know, they rescinded the vote, which means that we won't be getting the radios as this time or anytime soon. My personal opinion is it's pretty much dead in the water, I think, but it could change at any moment. I was with a group of fire chiefs that sat down privately with Mr. Riddell, and day before, or the Friday before, while I wasn't leading the conversation, I could tell that it just wasn't in the cards. So right now, we don't have anything solved on this. My guys still have no radio communications with North Ridgeville or Sheffield Village, and it's a crapshoot moving forward on safety. It's the best I can say it, most honestly.
Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Chief Pernesti, what is your opinion on the potential of us just being able to do this on our own steam, perhaps looking into solving the problem, whether through ARPA funds or other means, to purchase these radios? Obviously, it wouldn't be as coordinated as it might have otherwise been, but perhaps we can get the ball rolling. What are your thoughts on that?
It would be quite expensive for the Elyria Fire Department just do it on our own or for our own budget, but it would get the radios in our hands, and it's more than just a radio. These radios would allow us to communicate with just about everybody. So it wouldn't matter of putting everybody on the same system, which I feel is needed, but it would help us. But I'm torn because for my brother firefighters and fire chiefs, You know, we went on this together. We do everything together. And this, you know, I would be a little torn on that because we've been fighting this fight together. It doesn't mean that other departments will go off on their own. You know, but for the safety of my men, I'm never going to say no. And so it's a conversation that has to be had, but, you know, I would love to talk about it. But you have to remember, this is a group effort with all the fire departments in the county. But yeah, I would be receptive to speaking and talking on it, sure, but we got to get everybody on board. So if the city wants to buy everybody radios, then sure.
Mr. Lundy, Safety Service Director Lundy.
You know, this is an important safety issue for the city, and, you know, it's my opinion that the county should honor its commitment, that, you know, a commitment was made to this community, and that the county should honor that. The discussion of, you know, skin in the game, our skin in the game is that the city of Elyria agreed to handle the subscription end of it. And I think anything beyond that is not being fair and reasonable, that we should say to the county, honor your commitment. We've agreed to what our skin in the game is with the subscription services that are needed, and that's the way we should proceed. The sad part is I don't see an alternate plan that's been proposed, and we've been told that you might see one in a couple months, I think 2 to 4 months or something like that. It doesn't address the issue at hand. But, you know, obviously it's up to council as to what position, you know, you ultimately want to take on it. But I just feel that the county should honor its commitment, and that the city is willing to honor its commitment with the subscription end of the agreement.
If I could say one more thing on that, you know, I agree, and I appreciate the director saying that. If we were to just go to our own, you know, just purchase the radios ourselves and put the fire department on this system with the 5 cities in the Northeast, the problem that we would create would be if I have a fire in Elyria, those communities that are on it, aren't on it, they would have the same problem I have right now going into their communities. So it just is going to create more of an issue. The only advantage is that these radios allow talk groups and everything on any kind of channel, any kind of frequency. They're called tri-bands, so that you can talk to just about anyone or anything. But if I go to that system that the Northeast is on before anybody else, or with those 5 cities, people coming in, the Eaton Townships, the Carlisle, Lorraine, who's our biggest mutual aid partner, they couldn't talk to us. So I'd be causing another problem. So it's, you know, like the director said, honor their commitment. We went to them as a group, the commissioners, and that's why we did it. We did it as a group because it is, for this to work, everybody has to be on that same system at once. And that's where we're at.
Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. President. This is kind of a three-way question for the chief, our law director, and Mr. Lundy. If we go outside as elected council members, if we go outside our legal counsel, we hold potential liability. But the commissioner's disagreement, as I understand, Mr. Lundy, was approved originally by the county prosecutor's office and then passed. So by them voiding the agreement, they violated potential, I think I'm asking you, they violated, technically, they went outside, if their reasoning behind it, they went outside the legal ramifications in voiding this contract. Am I thinking about that incorrectly, is my question.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not prepared to say what the commissioners did was either legal or illegal. I'm not well versed in what their reasoning was or was not. I know what I've read in the paper, and it does appear that they have obviously been counseled by their legal counsel. The fact that there was a vote one way and then a rescission of that vote, I can't speculate as to whether or not what the legalities of that was. Each vote may have been legal in its own way, and I certainly am not going to wade into what the contract implications may be for them. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
I will say that nothing I've ever seen has united the safety forces of the county more than this issue. Nothing. I've never seen anything like it. So it has brought the fire chiefs together and the sheriff together, and that's a good thing. And so I want to kind of keep that lock arms and stay together kind of mentality that we have right now. But I appreciate any kind of input any of you have. Thanks for your support.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for your efforts. Assistant Safety Service Director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. To Council, on this past Thursday, I had the pleasure of participating in a Parks Board meeting where we engaged in a robust discussion centered around the 2022 Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. Pat Hoagland from Brand Center Carroll presented the update and led the discussion. And Director Reardon later in this meeting will share with you some updates from that master plan, and also share with you a way in which you all can participate in that process also. I would like to recognize and commend Director Reardon and her staff at the Martin Luther King celebration, which the mayor referenced earlier. In one of the breakout groups around the land use plan, the parks staff presented information on that master plan to the community. And they did an excellent job in their presentation and allowed for some input and feedback from the community. And so again, I would like to recognize the work that they did in presenting. And again, Director will be coming forward, I think, later in this meeting to share with you more information. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Williams? Thank you, Mr. Williams. Assistant Safety Service Director Calvert.
Good evening. We received a couple of questions about the Shane Furniture building, so I thought I would provide an update. The demolition is technically not completed. While the building is down, there is still debris that is being cleaned up by Flora, the contractor. The next step will be to actually, once that's all cleaned up, they will be waterproofing the exterior portion of the buildings. That easiest explained is like the basement level of that building. And then they'll be able to backfill it in with clean fill dirt. So the plan is to help supply some of that dirt from the Cleveland Street project, assuming that that is clean fill that we are able to use and help with that part of the effort. The next phase will be we need to make sure the exposed parts of the buildings on either side that were not previously exposed because they were adjoined are weatherized and made safe. So that portion will be the city's portion to complete that project. And we currently have, we're working with Osborne Engineering to help us to finalize the plan for that. So Laura, the cleanup and the fill of the site, that we're probably 6 to 8 weeks away from that being completed, obviously dependent on the weather this time of year. And we're still working on that plan for weatherizing the top portion. So we're not entirely sure what the timeline will be of that. But I thought, just wanted to provide an update and let everybody know where we're at, and happy to answer any questions.
With that being said, and whether that's directed to you, Ms. Calvert, or to the Law Director's office, are you at liberty to discuss the issues that happened during the demolition of the buildings at this particular time?
I'm going to interject through you, Mr. Chair. I would just say that there are many insurance companies involved, and I would say that no, we're not at liberty to discuss those in an open forum at this time.
Are we able to discuss as far as any structurally where the demolition happened on the building to the west? Has that kind of been somewhat stabilized for the roof area? Or am I just going down a path I shouldn't be going down? All right.
I would say that it's a process.
Very good. Thank you for the process. All right. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Calvert. I think we all can agree that the Shane demolition was a disaster, an absolute disaster. And I hope that the businesses on either side will be made whole, because they suffered in this process. And for a professional company that this demolition company was supposed to be, this never should have happened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council
Chris? Yes, Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Councilwoman Mitchell, for that commentary. So a couple things I'll share on that is that, I would like for us to put together an Economic Development Committee meeting to kind of discuss, some of the businesses that have been impacted due to this. Back to the legal thing, there's been some challenges even going down that process of trying to help businesses because of the dynamics at play. But yeah, we agree that one thing that we maybe need to assess and look at is, I know the policy and procedure around the lowest and best bid, and sometimes the lowest ain't the best bid. And so I think we learned a lesson with this group that maybe we need to revisit that policy so that we don't automatically have to accept groups like situations like this. All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions for Ms. Calvert? All right, very good. City Engineer, Ms. McKillips.
Good evening. I just wanted to give a quick update on our projects. Our big sewer project, the Eastside Relief Sewer, is in full swing on Poplar Street. Today they installed 2 sections of pipe, 20 feet. Yesterday we installed 10 feet of pipe. So it's a slow process, but it is progress. Right now the crew's being very careful of where they're excavating because we do have utilities on each side of the trench. So it's a slow process, but it is still moving forward. Next week, our contractor, which is Underground Utilities, will be starting excavation on Cleveland Street for the water main replacement project there. We will be maintaining 1 lane of traffic in each direction on Cleveland Street, but there will be times when a flagger may be needed to direct trucks or equipment. So there may be times when traffic will be backed up and delayed. Hopefully, it'll be fewer than a lot. But we just hope that drivers pay attention to the signs and please be patient with our contractors for their safety and the safety of the other drivers. On East Broad Street, we have utility companies that continue to replace or relocate their facilities. I know Columbia Gas is still out there. Windstream still needs to be out there. Ohio Edison has pretty much moved everything that they could at this point. There may be some other infrastructure that they need to do work on, but it may involve waiting for a couple of the other utility companies to get their work done. We're currently waiting for ODOT District 3 to give us the thumbs up and send the entire project down to central office for their review and for the Federal Highway review, so we can get this project bid out. And once we get it bid out, then we'll know whether or not the multi-purpose path is going to be concrete or asphalt. So it's still up in the air, but still on the table. And then I also want to mention that my office is working on finalizing a map to post on the website. We're thinking that for some people, it may be easier to visualize the road closures, the detours, what streets you can drive down, what streets you can't, which direction you can drive on. So we're working on a map, and we're finalizing it right now. So as soon as we get it posted, we'll let you know. You can take a look at it and provide any comments that may help the public or anyone in your wards that may find a need or may find some more information that would be helpful to put on our map. And that's all I have. I can take any questions.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, to my colleagues, Mrs. McKillop sent us all an email saying, get your streets in. So if you've not done your ride-along, do that. If you've not turned in your 2023 list, do that, or I will take your money. So, and you know that I will. Just kidding. So please get that into her as quickly as possible. And Mayor, if you can find us additional money so we can do residential streets, Ted, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Sarah?
For you, so the St. Jude's area is being impacted really hard right now. When they're doing this water main and then doing a big dig at the other end of the block, are they going to coordinate some of that so those people can still get out in one direction or another?
Yes, our inspectors, we'll have separate inspectors on both projects. They will be communicating back and forth along with our traffic techs in our office to make sure that, we don't end up with a street that is blocked on both ends and no one can get out. On Cleveland Street, the contractor will be starting at Hawthorne and working their way towards Gulf Road. I know right now over on Poplar we're working between Longfellow and Hawthorne, but we do have communications that will take place between them. And then the map, along with our inspectors and our construction manager, will make sure that traffic will keep flowing to the best of our ability. And for definitely the way some of these detours are planned, we have traffic heading towards the hospital. So for example, on Gulf Road, when we end up having to do work on Gulf Road, we will be bringing that traffic down to one-way traffic on Gulf, and it'll be southbound. That way it's inbound towards downtown and towards the hospital for any emergency vehicles, that type of thing that will need to use those routes.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Through you, Chair, I just want to say thank you for these updates that you sent us. And it let us know if somebody called us unexpectedly, like what's going on, we can just look at our emails, and I thank you.
Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. President. Thank you, Engineer McKillips, for that report. I heard you mention the East Broad Street resurfacing and that whether or not the shared use path would be concrete or asphalt is currently up in the air. I'm wondering if there's any way we can collaborate together as you go further down the development pipeline to take what's up in the air and pin it down to earth merely because the members of the First Ward that live on East Broad Street, which the preponderance of East Broad Street falls squarely within the First Ward, their eminent wish is for those shared use paths to be concrete, not asphalt. They have various reasons for that. And their tenuous support of the resurfacing program was conditioned upon their desire for it to be concrete as a compromise. So I really do hope that you could perhaps let me know when you get further down the development pipeline if we can collaborate or if there's any creative solution we can find. I'd be more than happy to work with you. And I know you're a very intelligent woman, and I'm sure we could find a good solution.
Okay.
Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Mr. President, I wanted to say thank you. your coordination with St. Jude's during their Christmas break was invaluable, and the ongoing, so that they can get information out to their 500 families, I believe it is now, that go in and out of there every day. So thank you very much.
I did have a question in regards to Abbey Road, north and south of the railroad tracks, the paddles, the reflector paddles that are there. What is the reasoning for that?
Those delineators that are located there in Abbey, they're also located on Olive and Murray Ridge.
Murray Ridge and West Ridge.
Yes. Those are a part of what we're working on as far as a quiet zone for the railroad tracks. So we have the infrastructure in place. Now it's just getting the paperwork and the railroad to do their thing.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Ms. McKillips. Mayor, did you have something else, or no?
I was just saying, I can't wait for them to stop hitting that horn.
Mr. Corzan, wastewater. Any questions for Mr. Corzan? Parks and Rec, Ms. Reardon.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you, Director Williams, for helping out. He is passing out a draft.
Point of order, all comments on the record, please.
Okay, thank you. Am I good?
Continue on, Ms. Reardon.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Williams just passed out a draft copy, just so everybody knows this is a draft. This is an updated master plan to the master plan we have in 2016. So we did not start the process completely over because that one is still fairly new. The reason for the update is due to issue 6, which we're very grateful and thankful for. We've been able to accomplish a lot of projects out of the first master plan, so we wanted to update it to be able to move forward. You know, the next 6 to 10 years, this really should be our roadmap for our department and our projects. So this was started back in 2020 with, again, we went through the community engagement surveys, things like that, to get feedback. What did people now, you know, want to see? We kind of went through a first wave of things, so what now would people like to see? And that's what you guys have a copy of. So yesterday at the event, we were able to present, as Mayor Whitfield said, in a breakout session. With that, we gave the residents a link to be able to, there was a lot of survey talk yesterday. So our survey is very short, one question. This is the last effort to get the feedback, and then that date is February 15th. We're requesting all feedback by. This will then go to the Parks Board, which they've also received a copy to give us their feedback at the last meeting. We'll get all feedback back. All feedback back? We will receive all feedback, and then this, hopefully, as long as our timeline stays where we want it, this will be presented to the Park Board at the March meeting for them to adopt, and then we'll come to you guys after that for you to adopt it. So, a few things that, as Mr. Williams said, Mr. Hoagland did present at Park Board, so I grabbed a few of his slides just to give you guys a very quick overview of some things that I thought were worth pointing out. Some projects that were yet to be completed from the 2016 master plan: the Family Aquatic Center, a splash pad at North, South Park. There was some in there to expand the rec center to offer more programming space, additional basketball courts at East, Academy Court, West, and Hilltop, an amphitheater, they have women's locker room in here in North, but we're getting to that. Upgraded playground at West, the trails on here, and some work at Finwood. And those were just some of the high kind of level things that they pulled out of here. And then, some new recommendations that were not in the original plan, but are in this update. Upgrade the ball diamonds at North Park. We're actually doing that, I apologize, the rectangular, multipurpose fields at South, which we are working on. Again, some upgrades to West Park, as far as which was on the old one, a new basketball court, but that's on the old one. But again, that is, should be a priority going into this one. Academy Court, there's been some change of focus. So we used to have a group that used Academy Court for football. They're actually at South Park now. So changing the idea of Academy Court from football to soccer, and then the Pocket Park, because that was not, in the 2016 one. So again, those are not the only things that are different, but those are just some things that were pulled out. And I know there was a dead link on our Facebook page today for the thing, but that has been updated, so I do apologize for that. But the link for our one question survey is www.cityofelyria.org/parks plan. And again, we're just asking that this is kind of like, this is your chance. Any feedback, any comments, we would love to hear. We do want to wrap this up, and we do want to adopt it so then we can start to move forward on some of the things in here. But yeah, and I will be following this up for you all with an email with an electronic version, which there is one online, but I'll put it in the email for you guys also, and then look forward to your guys' feedback. And I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Reardon? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Chair. My question is, at the Bell Avenue, first off, the word tot lot's probably been around. I've been over there 50 years, so it's been that long, and I just think it's time to change the name from Bell Avenue Tot Lot. That's first thing. And secondly, are you going to put the signs back up to, before we had like an age limit where the kids the bigger kids weren't trying to take it over as before. And I noticed this, and I understand that they did this toward the end of the year. But I appreciate if the signs come back up so the older kids just don't come over there and take over. With no signage, they think they're in charge and would just run the little ones off the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So when is the walking trail at West Park gonna actually go in?
Through you, Chair. There has not been a scheduled pre-construction meeting yet, but I would say hopefully maybe within the next 3 weeks we'll have the pre-construction meeting. They did tell us when they got the contract that it would be after the first of the year, closer to when the weather was breaking. So we did know that kind of going into when they got their contract.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, through you. And the pickleball court, when are they gonna start doing that?
Through you, Chair. So that's all on the same contract.
Okay.
That was one contract, and then the restroom building, which has been started, was a different contract, so they are on different timelines for that.
Thank you.
And the reason why Ms. Mitchell was asking about that, she's become a pickleball fanatic.
I heard.
Yeah. Ms. Reardon, can you give us an update on any of the programs, like what's going on right now, what's in the scopes right now?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. So yesterday, that was another thing that the supervisors talked about in the breakout room. We're definitely looking to add more programming. Going to continue on with what we've done for years because those are all strong programs, but we do want to add some more. We're going to be adding some yoga, which we've actually already added a few workshops. There's going to be an actual class starting with that. Really looking to add some more adult basketball leagues. I will tell you that we're definitely needing the right staff member to run that, but that's on the horizon. I should have brought my better notes. I apologize. Oh, this summer, we're gonna do a mobile rec program, which I don't know if anybody listened or watched our video from yesterday, but we're basically gonna throw a bunch of equipment in one of our vans and go to spots around town that maybe kids can't get to our park. We are still working out some of the legalities of that, but everything will work out. But we want to provide, during the summer, programming for people that maybe can't make it to our park. So we're really looking forward to that. Some more stuff at the pools, the movies in the parks, we're gonna add a few more of those this summer. Dive-in movies, and I know I'm forgetting things and I apologize. So our brochure should be out, by about March 1st is usually our target date, and that'll have spring and summer programming in it.
Very good. Any other questions for Ms. Reardon? Thank you, Ms. Reardon.
Thank you.
President's referrals and remontrances. There was a referral made by Finance Director Pileski tonight. Since there's no meeting, finance meeting, we'll do that at the full council meeting on February 6th at 6:45. Items 1 through 6 received on file in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There are none.
Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
We have one. We have considered the matter of a liquor license request by Ohio Mart Group LLC, DBA Ohio Mart Elyria, located at 515 Abbey Road, North Elyria, and the city of Elyria does not request a hearing.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move this committee report be passed on its first reading.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Committee report 2023-1. That's all the committee reports.
Resolutions first reading. Mr. Clerk, I'm going to recuse myself on items 2, 6, and 8 due to a conflict of interest. Ms. Mitchell will take over the meeting.
Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. A resolution of intent to appropriate certain property along Cleveland Street and declare an emergency.
Mr. Callahan.
I move that this resolution be passed under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the emergency, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-1. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent, inactive utility accounts and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said accounts to the Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Gillette.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-2. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution submitting to the electorates of the city of Elyria at the election on May 2nd, 2023, the question of renewing a 0.5% temporary levy on income for operations for a 5-year period commencing July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2029, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lippian.
Question.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-3. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance amending sections 192.01 and 192.03, Chapter 192, Earned Income Tax, Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, and repealing certain existing sections 192.01 and 192.03, ratifying all other existing sections of Chapter 192, providing for the effective date thereof, and providing that this ordinance shall be in effect only if approved by the electorates, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lippian. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-1.
Mr. President, I'm going to recuse myself due to a conflict of interest.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for and accept, if offered, the Ohio Department of Transportation State Infrastructure Bank Loan for the city's portion of the Cleveland Street project and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second. Is there any discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the emergency, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-2. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application for and accept, if offered, the Ohio Department of Transportation State Infrastructure Bank Loan for the city's portion of the East Broad Street project and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lippian. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-3.
Again, Mr. President, I'll step out to recuse myself.
Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. Authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the reconstruction of Cleveland Street, LOR 658-0.00 project.
Mr. Tolet.
I ask that this ordinance be passed under suspension of rules.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question.
All those in, I'm sorry, on the suspension, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On the passage, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-4.
Number there, whatever that tells.
Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 5-year lease purchase agreement for a new CCTV truck and equipment for the wastewater pollution control plant through the state purchasing program or equivalent program and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-5. Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for a new HVAC system for the wastewater pollution control plant administration building and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
We have one nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-6. Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to purchase a new Ford F-350 pickup truck for the wastewater pollution control plant through the state purchasing program or equivalent program and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-7. Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to purchase a new Ford F-550 service truck for the wastewater pollution control plant through the state purchasing program or equivalent program and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-8. Sponsored by Finance and Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to purchase a new Case 580 SN backhoe for the wastewater pollution control plant through the state purchasing program or equivalent program and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-9. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to exercise the second year and third year option of an existing sludge disposal contract with the Browning Ferris Industries of Ohio, Inc., DBA Republic Services, Elyria Hauling Company.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution ordinance 2023-10. An ordinance authorized the mayor to enter into an agreement with ODOT to perform guardrail upgrades on State Route 113 in the areas of Lorraine Boulevard and Lake Avenue.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-11. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for chemicals for the wastewater pollution control plant for chemicals for years 2023 and 2024 and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Simmons. Is there any further discussion? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-12. Sponsored by Utilities. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for chemicals for the water pumping plant for years 2023 and 2024 and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Simmons. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-13. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance to second reading.
There are none?
Ordinance to third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Do I go through the list?
Yeah, go through the whole list.
Okay. Community Development requests a law director, safety service director, and building inspector and engineer on Monday, 1:30, 6 p.m. All items referred. Joint CD Finance requests the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, 1:30, immediately following community development meeting. All items referred. Finance requests the mayor, law director, finance director, safety service director, and engineer on Monday, 1:30, immediately following the joint meeting. All items referred. Utility Safety Environment requests the law director, safety service director, and engineer. Wednesday, 2/8, 6 p.m. All items referred. And Strategic Plan requests the mayor, safety service director, finance director, and law director on Monday, 2/6, 7 PM. Items referred.
To the Law Director's Office, in regards to since there were no referrals, there were some received and placed on file. I don't know if any of these will be on for January 30th.
That would be correct. If there are no referred items, then there would be no meeting agenda.
Okay.
Mr. President, there was one referral from Mr. Pulaski.
Right, so that will be on the February 6th meeting at 6:45. That's going to be right in front of the full council. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
Mr. President, we have some legislation here.
All right.
Sponsored by the Rules Committee, an ordinance providing for the submission to the electorate of an amendment of Article 3, Section 3.12 of the Charter of the City of Elyria, Ohio, entitled Council, Vacancies in Council.
Mr. Sarah?
I make a motion, waive defect in service, suspend the rules, and to pass this.
Second.
Second by, was that Mr.?
It's both Mr. Schneider and I, but.
All right. Mr. Schneider, is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those nay? Is that it?
Yes.
That's to pass the ordinance, just like that? Okay. Is there any other miscellaneous and unfinished business?
Board,
Mr.
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 President,
Oz? Oh, sorry.
ordinance 2023-14.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. I just wanted to give a quick update that we are working, I'm working, Mr. Callahan's working to get a date together to meet with the ODNR guy to talk about the deer issue. As soon as we find that meeting, we'll let everybody know. And so I'm handling the deer, and now I got another one. You may be able to tell me, Mr. Corzan, but I guess we're seeing a lot of sightings of coyotes. And so everybody's worried about what coyotes are doing. So I'm not going to get into detail about it, but everybody spread the word. Hide your little ones outside, your dogs, your animals. Keep them inside when you see a coyote, and just spread the word on what they can do. I don't know if they're harmful or not, but do your research. Yes, Mr. Corzan. Oh. And they were mainly in your area.
To you, Mr. President. There are some really great resources on the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Wildlife website. I've actually pulled off a number of those articles for my employees. We do have a few coyotes back in the woods because, you know, as you know, we're nestled into the metro parks. So we know that they're in the woods. They rarely come onto our property. They are not pack hunters. They're solitary. They're way different than wolves in that respect. They're way more afraid of us than we are of them, for the most part. You know, they run when they see us. Again, I would refer anybody to the ODNR website and just do a Google search for coyotes, and it'll take you right to that website. There's great references and resources there.
Through you, Mr. President, and that's what I found out, this guy they were talking with from the ODNR about the deer, and they are so knowledgeable, and when I wanted a little information, and I got 700 pages from an email, I'm like, okay, I can't read that much, but anyhow, they're really good, so please check your websites and get some information. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald, anybody else? Miscellaneous and unfinished business? If not, Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, just one thing. It is freezing in here, and I know I'm not the only one. It is absolutely freezing. So can we maybe turn the heat on for the next meeting? Thank you. Seeing no other business, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. Sarah. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
Mike, I don't know where you're going or whatever, but, we're just gonna need certified copies of all that, like the charter and then the tax stuff.
You want it tonight or tomorrow?
If you're gonna be around tomorrow, I just was gonna probably take it out there before the end of the week.
17th today, right?
Today is